Hello guys and welcome back to Madfire on channel. So in this tutorial series we are going to create a simple puzzle game. In this series we are going to check 8 direction swipe control which will be used to move our player, level generation from LevelData, then grid system and many more things. The entire project is available on GitHub. The link will be in the description. And if you want premium version of this project which has extra features in it like add mob, unity ads, level editor, 100 plus ready to go levels, then you can go to my Patreon page and get the premium project, and in this way you will also support this channel. So without any further delay, let's get started. So now we are able to move our brush, but we need to make small change. So let's go to our grid, and as you know, in our level manager, when we create our grid, we are passing this origin position. But the thing is, when we are getting the position by using this grid dot get cell world position, we are not adding this thing to it. So for that we will go to our grid, and in that we will create one more variable which we will call a private vector 3, and we'll call this origin pose. Okay, let's copy this and paste it here, and we will set our origin pose is equal to origin pose. Okay, let's go back to our level manager and we'll get this error. So origin pose for this is vector 3.0. So our brush is moving, so we now need to show some visuals that the connection between the 2 points or 2 cells when our brush moves. So for that, first of all we go to our cell, and in this cell we'll create a new variable. So we'll call this serialize field private. It will be our mesh renderer, and we'll call this cell center, and we'll create a getter for it. So public mesh renderer, and we'll call this cell center get return cell center. Okay, so let's go back to our editor, select the block, click on open prefab, and you can see here we have this option. So here in our block we'll right click and create a cylinder, and we need to give it some color. So I will just duplicate this brush color and I will call this connection paint. Okay, and we'll give it some green color, something like this, and we'll just assign it, and we'll make it unlit color only, because we don't want any shadow or any other things for that. Let's go to in top view and let's reduce its size. So let it be 0.45, and y can be 0.2, and we need to move it up. Let's remove the capsule collider because we don't need it, and let's move this up like this. Okay, and first we will deactivate it. We will activate only when connection is done. Go to block, assign the cylinder, and save the prefab. Okay, so now we need to keep track of the connections, right? So for that we will create a new class. So in the scripts folder, create a new C sharp script and let's call it connections or only connection. Now double click to open it in editor and we'll add our namespace line paint. Okay, and connection will be a non-mono behavior because it is just will be used to store the data. So for that we don't need mono behavior, and we'll also remove the start and update method. Okay, so here we create two variables vector to end. One is start code and one is end code. Then we have this connection constructor where we pass the start coordinates and the end coordinates and we assign those to our local coordinates, and then we have created some getter for our coordinates so that we can access them. Okay, so once we have created this, let's close this script, and in level manager here we will create a new private list, so connection, and we'll call this in progress, and which will be equal to new list of connection. So basically whenever we do any connection we will store that in this. Now we need to show the connection whenever our brush moves, so for that we will use line renderer, but we need a script also to control that. So here we again create a new C sharp script and we'll call this line paint. Double click and first we'll add it in our namespace line paint, and let's remove the start and update method. Let's go to our editor and create a new empty game object. Reset this position and let's call this line paint, or you can call this connection or whatever you want. Let's drag our line paint script on it, and we need a line renderer on it so that we can show some visuals to our players. So click on add component. I will add a line renderer. Okay, so it is too big right now. So what we can do is the width, let's reduce it to 0.3. I think 0.3 will be okay. Then we don't need any cast shadow or receive shadows because we are not going to use those. In material, let's drag our connection paint to here. So as you can see here, if I move it a little bit down the position, that will be -1 or maybe -0.2, and this will be 0.2. So as you can see here, we are having some line error. So this is how we are going to show the connection. So for now set the size 0 to our line renderer position because we will edit that in our script. Then let's go back. Okay, so here we create a private line renderer variable, which we make it serialized field so that we can edit it from inspector. Then we create two vector two ends, start coordinates and end coordinates. Then we have the getter for them. Then here we create a method public void set connected chords, and we pass the start chord and end chord, and then we assign those to our local variables. Then we have this set render position. So this is basically for setting the line renderer. So we set our line renderer position count to 2, and then we set the first position to start and the second position to end. Okay, so let's close this thing. Let's go back, and let's assign our line renderer here, and let's create a prefab out of it. So I will just drag this and paste it here. Let's delete this thing. Now we only need to spawn them whenever our brush moves. So for that, let's go to our level manager. So here we create a variable which stores our line paint prefab. Then we create two more variables, list variable basically. So one is a list of connection. We called it in progress, and we set it equal to new. And then we have another list of line paint script. We call this connected line paint, and we again set it to new. Now in our move brush method, when we move our brush, we have to make the connection, right? So here we do all our check, and then we in our in progress we add the new connection. We pass the starting chord, which is our brush chord, and then we pass the end chord, which will be our new chord. Then we get the cell which is at the position our brush is at, and we set its center activate. Then we create a line paint. We instantiate it at some position here. So right now this position doesn't matter much, because our line renderer will be with the one which is visible. Then we set our line renderer position. So here we pass our brush position, and we add some small value in our y-axis so that we can see our line paint at top of our block basically. Then again we set the final pose as well. Then we call our line paint set connection chord, and we pass the brush chord as a starting chord and new chord as the end chord. And at the end we add our line paint to our connected line paint list. So let's go and see how it is working. So select our level manager and let's drag our line paint prefab here. So if I click on play, let's move up. Okay, so our line paint is created, but our Z position is wrong. Okay, let's go back and see what we made wrong. Okay, so the mistake we did guys here is we are using vector 2, but we supposed to be using vector 3, so that's why our Z was 0. Okay, let's save all this thing and let's go back and let's try to play, and this time it should work. So if I move up, so it is more working. Okay, that's good. But there is one issue guys. So if I stop again and play, we are not removing it. So let's say I move up, and when I move down we need to remove that because we have to do some undo thing, right? So if I move down, so we have a line paint prefab here already created, which is this. If I move down, you can see we are creating one more again, and we don't want that, so we need to remove it as well. So for that, in our level manager, so here we create a new method which returns a bool called connection already done, and we pass the coordinates, so start coordinate and end coordinate. We create a local boolean. So here we loop through all our uh, values or elements we have in our in progress list. So here we check if in progress I dot start coordinate is equal to the start coordinate, and in progress I end coordinate equal to end coordinate, or if the start is equal to end and end is equal to start. If any one of these two are true, then we know that in progress already has that connection and we have to remove that. So we just call in progress dot remove at I, and we set connected is equal to true and we return connected. Then we again have a new method called remove connect line paint, and here again we pass the start coordinate and end coordinate. Then here we again loop through our connected line paint list. Again we check for the start and end coordinate, and if this comes true, then we get the line. So we go to our connected line paint list, and we get the element at I. Then we remove it from our list and we destroy it. And in move brush method, so before we uh, do any line paint creation, we check if the connection is already done. If this thing is false, Then we do all our thing, like we add to our progress, we create our line paint and all those things. But if this is true, that means the connection is already done. We just remove that line paint which is already created. So let's save all this thing and go back to our editor and let's see if it is working or not. Okay, click on play. Let's move up. Let's move down. Okay, so it's working. Okay, this thing doesn't work. Okay, we have some errors. Let's see what we are missing here. And one thing we have to do, guys, we are not removing or deactivating our center point, that visual, the circle one. So we go to our cells, then we have our end quad dot x comma end quad dot y dot cell center dot game object dot set active. Okay, set active to false. So we go to our two-dimensional array of cell, we get the element which is at this thing or this position, and we deactivate its cell center. Okay, so the error we are facing here is, so in connection already done, we made a mistake. So this connected, we set it to true only in this condition. Only if we find a connection, then only we set it to true. And we also need to break from that so that it doesn't look for all of those. So once we get this thing, then only we set the connection equal to true. And I think this should solve our problem. So let's go back, click on play, and let's move up, move down. Okay, move up. Okay, this is looking good. If I move down, this should go away. Okay, great. Okay, okay, so as you can see here, guys, we are able to do our connection. We are now also able to do our undo for those connections. So the next thing will be detecting the pattern and checking if we have completed the pattern or not.